This is Dominic Singh at the Worley Fly Shop. Today I'm going to show you a very popular streamer pattern. This is the Zoo Cougar by Galloup. This is a little variation on it that I tie using cow elk for the head. And it's just a little less buoyant than deer hair, so it kind of adds to the neutral buoyancy of this fly. This is an excellent streamer for bass and trout, and can be tied in a variety of colors for just about any water that you're fishing. So let's get to tying. To start, I'm using a size 2 streamer hook. I'd recommend something like the Mustad. This is a 2x heavy, 3x long hook. Just want something with a fairly long shank and heavy wire. The thread I'm using is a 200 denier gel spun. And this really comes in handy for spinning the head up. Most important thing when spinning hair or packing hair is laying down a good thread base. It really helps to grip all the materials, keep them in place, and adds to the durability of the fly. So I did about 3 or 4 passes there. And now I'm going to tie in the tail, some lemon yellow Fish Hunter marabou. Let's just take one feather. I'm going to do about a hook shank length. That's secured. All right, now we're going to tie in the body material. This is a pearl diamond braid. You can use the round or the flat for this. This is the round. I'm tying with gel spun. I like to just cinch all these materials down, so there's no chance of them coming out. So you can use any hackle you want for the body. I'm going to use this bright orange grizzly. It's a little contrast. Something like the whiting streamer pack would be a good hackle for this. So that's secured. I'm going to mark where I want that head to begin. So about here. You know, most of the time you want about 1/3 of the length of the hook, but you can vary it depending on what action you want out of the fly. Just gonna bring the braid up. Now the hackle. You can counter wrap this as well, if you like. So now you're ready for the wing. The wing that I like for this fly is this Icelandic sheep hair. So this one, all the long stuff's kind of been trimmed out of this one, but all this short hair works really well for these wings on this pattern. Going to take a small clump, take a little less than you think you need. Brush it out a bit. And I keep it fairly short. I don't want it much longer than that tail. Just trim the butts flush and a couple loose wraps, cinch it in. Like that. Right, for the overwing, the traditional one is mallard. I'm going to use a guinea hen feather for this one. It's a little different coloration. Essentially, you just want a nice flat feather on top to help balance it. Just kind of position that where you want, tying the stem. You want it to be laying back as straight as you can, following the shank. Right, now that that's all done, we're ready for the head. I'm using the spinning cow elk for this fly. It packs a bit tighter than deer hair. It's just a little less buoyant, so you don't get with this finished fly, it rides a bit more level. It doesn't quite kick up like this if you're fishing it on a sink tip without a weight. And you want a decent amount for the collar here. So I have a decent handful here, and you want to comb it out really well. Get all the underfur. And if you want to stack the tips, I just kind of do a loose stack in my hand. Alright. Now, since this is pretty long hair, I'm going to trim some of the butts just to make it a little more manageable. And then bring those tips back a little beyond the point there. On the bottom, loose wrap, another wrap, and start to cinch down. Throw a chaser wrap in there, and then hold the bottom of the shank and pull back. So do the same thing for the top now. I'm going to use just a little more hair on the top to keep it balanced. Just kind of match the tips up there. Hold it in place. Again, loose wrap, start to cinch down. Second wrap. Pull down and chase a wrap. Now pinch from the sides here and pull backwards. That's the same technique for packing deer hair. I'm tying this fly with deer belly. I like to spin it more than this packing style just because it's so much more buoyant. That is a decent amount of shank left here, so I'm going to take a large clump of cow elk, comb it out. Now I'm going to trim the tips off here and keep the tips facing backwards. Same packing technique here. At this point, you can start packing it back with your fingers here. You can use a hair packer as well. Typically, I don't need this fly packed quite as tight as you would for a topwater fly with deer hair, but I think we have enough space here for one more pack. You want that very last pack to be the tightest. Just when you're trimming it, you don't risk trimming the thread. Right. That's about as tight as I can get it there, so I'm going to run the thread up the side here, weaving through the hair just by moving the bobbin back and forth. And catch any part of the shank you have left there behind the eye. At that point, I catch it with a half hitch. And then throw a few more half hitches on. Just make sure the thread's going over the eye. You can trim the thread off and we're ready to trim the head on this fly. Best way to go about this is take a double-edged razor, flexible kind, and start with the belly here. So just bring the razor back along with the eye, trim flat along the hook shank. Just don't cut down, just cut straight across there. And you can kind of tell where the collar is, so I generally try to stop right above it. Like that. Now for the top, I'm going to bend this razor just a bit, get the right curvature, and start up at the eye. And clean that up so you can tell what's going on there. And then just gently moving that razor back and forth. Start trimming the kind of flat, wide head shape that this fly has. So I always trim them just a bit bigger than I want the actual head to be. You can always trim a little more off. At this point I come in with some scissors and round the head a bit. Right, I'm fairly happy with the way that head is now. So if you kind of tell by the design, it's flat here to kind of push upwards in the water like that. Run fairly true, nice and wide, so it splays out in that water. And the round head there just cuts through, creates a really excellent darting action with a little bit of buoyancy to kind of keep it floating. So it's a great fly to fish on a sink tip or an intermediate. It can also be great on a floating if they're in shallow water. Trout and bass, excellent streamer fly.